I have been on a men's retreat at Catalina before, and it's great fun. So I know those guys are having a great time, and I appreciate Brian and my friendship with him and many of the men and women at the church here. A few weeks ago, we had the opportunity to attend an amazing life celebration service for my wife's aunt. And I don't know about you, but when you go to a funeral or a memorial service, you never know what to expect. But when we go to a memorial service and a celebration of life service for a saint, someone who has lived their life for the Lord, then it can be a great celebration. And that's exactly what it was. My wife's aunt had suffered for 15 years with cancer and had lots of chemotherapy. And so we all knew it was coming. But eventually she went to be with the Lord and lived a great full life. But the service was an amazing service. Her husband was still alive, and they had a great marriage, and they celebrated their marriage in the service, you could tell, and a lot of great songs. But one of the things that impacted me the most from the service was when her daughter spoke about her mother and her mother's friendship with women over the years at the church she had attended, and how those women were key to her faith and her growth, and especially in the many years she suffered through cancer and the chemotherapy. And at one point, her daughter Lisa said, "All you women who are here that was with Christy through all the important years, please stand up." And about 10 women stood up. And it was a powerful time and a testimony to their friendship through all the years of their lives. And the meeting for coffee and talking about kids and life, and then the tragedy of cancer that took her life as she ended her life. But it was a great moment in the service because I looked around at these older ladies who had been through the journey of life with Christy and reminded me of the importance of friendship. Incredible friendships that take us through life, and most importantly, biblical friendship. And that's what I titled the message this morning. For those of us that love the Lord and are doing our best to follow Him through our Christian lives, I want to talk about not just friendship, but biblical friendship, and why that's so important for each one of us at every single phase of our life. Doesn't matter when you're young or when you're old, but biblical friendship, as we grow together in our relationship with God, I believe is critical, and I've seen it in my life, and I'll give you a few examples of how it's been very good and very important for me throughout my entire life. I believe that God created us for a relationship, and He created us for a relationship with each other as human beings because that's how we get through life together. And I believe that here on earth, with the right friends, that relationship is a critical part of our growth in life as well as our growth in Christ. And for a lot of us, that friendship is in marriage also. My wife and I went out on a date last night and spent a long time talking about all kinds of great things in this week and this upcoming week. And we've been together 32 years, and that's a long time. So we've been friends for a long time also. I was talking with a friend of mine this week who's 26 and just broke up with his girlfriend of 14 months, and we were going back and forth on where that thing's going to go. And he said, "But we were really good friends." And I said, "That's great." And I've said to all the couples I've done weddings for, if you're not marrying your best friend, don't marry that person because you got a long life together, and you should be best friends. I like love, and it's great, but it's an emotion, and it gets all over the map. But boy, friendship in marriage is so important. I'll talk about that this morning also. As we walk through the Christian life, the key, though, is to have the right kind of friends. And I want to tell you one of my favorite stories. We'll read it together this morning from the Old Testament in the book of 1 Samuel. If you have your Bibles or your phones or your iPads or whatever you got the scriptures on, I'd like you to open it up, please. 1 Samuel chapters 18 through 20. And we'll retell parts of the story of this amazing friendship with Jonathan and David. Every time I read the story of this friendship, I long for that with the men I have in my life, and I've been fortunate to have great friends throughout my life also. But I believe this is just a very great example of what a true friendship is. And I'm telling you, for some of you guys in the room this morning, we're going to read the story and you're going to be uncomfortable. David and Jonathan were really close. They were tight friends. And for some men, they don't have that. But I want to talk about why that's important for all of us, and especially us guys who tend to want to be islands if we're not careful. 1 Samuel chapter 18, verse 1. I'm going to read some verses for you in chapter 18, chapter 19, just to give you an introduction to this relationship. And then we'll pray and ask God to take us through our message this morning. So let's start in the book of 1 Samuel chapter 18 and take a look at verse 1. After David had finished talking with Saul, Jonathan became one in spirit with David, and he loved him as himself. And if you know the story of Jonathan and David, David had lived this amazing life as a young warrior and a young leader and had accomplished many great things, but he had now become an adversary to Saul, Jonathan's father. And there was a relationship that was not healthy between the two of them. And so David's life was being threatened, and Jonathan started to protect him as a friend. We see there in chapter 18, verse 1, that David loved him, and Jonathan, they loved each other as himself. They had this great mutual respect for each other. And then turn to chapter 19, and 18 goes on to tell about the strife between David and Saul. And then in chapter 19, verses 1 and 2, Saul told his son Jonathan and all the attendants to kill David, again because of the strife. But Jonathan was very fond of David and warned him, "My father Saul is looking for a chance to kill you. Be on your guard tomorrow morning and go hiding to stay there, protecting each other, looking out for each other's best interest." And then chapter 20, verse 4, Jonathan said to David, whatever you want me to do, I'll do it for you. This deep friendship that they had. And then two other verses we'll look at in chapter 20, verses 41 and 42, I think really speaks well to the depth of their friendship. After the boy had gone, David got up from the south side of the stone and bowed down before Jonathan 3 times with his face to the ground. Then they kissed each other and wept together, but David wept the most. Boy, that is a deep friendship, to have that kind of emotion expressed, especially between men. So with that introduction, let's take a minute and pray, and we'll ask God to take us through this text this morning. Father, thank you for the opportunity to come together, to gather as men and women of faith, to sing these amazing songs, to open our hearts to you. And I pray now as we open the Bible and look at the story of Jonathan and David, it will be an encouragement to each one of us as we go through life and friendship and struggles and victories, that you would lead and guide us, and you would bring the right people into our life as we seek them out also, to help us grow in our faith and our friendship as we follow you. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. The first point I want to give you comes from chapter 18, verses 1 through 3. I read 2 of them. And that is, I believe our true friends are fully committed to you. Fully committed to you no matter what the circumstances are in life. But wouldn't it be great if we could say that life just was one cakewalk, one easy thing, right? Never a problem. We wouldn't need friends, but we know that's not the case. Life is rough. So we need our friends that are committed to us no matter what the circumstances are. Committed to us when we're easy to be around and things are going great. That's an easy time to be a friend. Committed to us when we're a knucklehead and making bad choices and annoying everyone, but that friend is committed to you. Committed to you when you're not in a good mood and you don't feel like having a friend around you. Because we get that in that circumstances sometime, right? Committed to you when you're in an obnoxiously good mood and you're bugging everybody else, but your friends are still committed to you. Or committed to you when you're just a pain and people don't want to be around you because you're bothered by certain things. Or committed to you when you're leading someone out of misery and things that they're struggling with in their life and the things that really go wrong sometimes. Or committed to you sometime when there's just nothing to say. Sometimes best friends just listen, and they let you just unload on them. And boy, that's a great thing. To me, that's a sign of a true friend that can just listen. Maybe sometimes that's all they need to do is listen and say, just tell me what's going on. I can't tell you how to get out of this problem, but I'm going to listen to you, and I'm going to pray with you. A true friend is someone who's committed to you to cry with you when things just make no sense, and life is completely confusing. A true friend is committed to God and his grand plan for your life and your lives as you journey together in this friendship. So there are some examples of a true friendship. And everything I just listed, I believe, was exactly how Jonathan and David's friendship was. They were committed through everything. Now, I'd like to think that none of us have a threat on our lives and someone isn't out to kill us and hurling spears at us as Saul was doing to David. But we go through rough times. Times it almost seems that bad, and it's great to have that friend when we're going through things that don't make any sense that way. I also believe the right friends help you pursue your dreams even at their own expense. And sometimes our friends will say, you know what, this is so important to you, I'm going to set aside what's important to me right now, and I'm going to help you accomplish that dream. Back in our text in 1 Samuel chapter 18, verse 4, we see exactly a good example of that. Take a look at 18:4, and it says, after those verses I had read earlier, Jonathan took off his robe he was wearing and gave it to David, along with his tunic and even his sword and his bow and his belt. And why is that so critical that he gave up his own dreams? Because Jonathan was this will be interesting. Jonathan was the rightful heir to the throne. So as the kingdom marches on, David's the outsider. He's coming in, right? And he's got a lot of success, but he's not the rightful heir to the throne. Jonathan is. And at this point, Jonathan's seeing the bigger picture, sees what's going on, and he is now setting aside his own dreams to help David pursue his dreams. Look at what he just did. Took off his cloak, took off his belt, his sword, the signs of power, and he gave it to David. He said, this is where God is leading us, and I'm going to help you get there. That's a great example. Jonathan was the king's son, and he did not feel any insecurity or threat at the fact that his friend was going to be the next king. A true friend rejoices with their friends when things happen in their life better than your own. I'm so happy for you. This is so great. And yeah, maybe you wish it happened to you, but to be able to rejoice with your friends when they go over and above something maybe that you wanted to have happen in your life. I'm sure Jonathan would have loved to be the next king. But he had wisdom. He saw what God was doing. And he's now rejoicing with David as God is leading David to be the next king. He's the legal heir giving away to this young man the royal family inheritance that he would have had. And I believe it's because Jonathan could see God's bigger picture. And true friends help you dream about your future. Say things to us like, yes, you should do that. That's a great idea. Let's get excited about that together. How can I pray for you? How can I help you accomplish this great dream in your life? Or how can I help you get there? What can I do to help you accomplish that? So all those examples in true friendship, there's times we just set aside our own agenda and say, I can see this is very important to you, and we've been friends for so long. How can I help you get there? Boy, there's nothing better than that, right? When you're discouraged and you have a good friend, you say, no, I know you can do this. I got your back. We're going to accomplish this thing together. Oh, that's a great feeling. And I know that's what Jonathan was doing in his relationship to David as they grew together as friends. The third point I want to give you is that I believe the true friends can express their emotions to each other. And those verses I read in 1 Samuel 20, 41 through 42, where they came together as friends and they kissed each other and they wept together as they were grieving over Saul's jealousy of David and trying to take his life, and Jonathan helping him advance on. It brought them so close in their emotions to each other as friends. Now, as you know, many of the men of Mission Hill, there's many men here today too, not all the men are gone, but many of the men are at a men's retreat. And I don't know if you've had a chance to go to a men's retreat or a woman's retreat or these kind of things where you get away for a few days. They're the best. And sometimes emotions are expressed at those in ways that we can't do it on another level. And so if you've never had a chance to go to a men's retreat or a women's retreat or a youth camp or things where we get away from reality for a little bit of time, I highly encourage that, because that's where sometimes we learn to express our emotions with each other. That's an important part of life and an important part of friendships. I've been very fortunate, like I mentioned earlier, throughout my life. In high school, Phil and Dan were my good friends, and we dreamed about the future together. I just saw them this summer when I spoke at a youth camp, and we reconnected. We've known each other for over 40 years, and we stay connected all the time. So Phil and Dan helped me get through high school. And then I got to college, and I had friends like Mike and his family, and then Cree, his brother, who goes to this church, connected with me when we moved to Orange County, and we became close friends, and we journeyed through life together as we've been friends for such a long time. Also in college, I had a guy named Jake. He was my discipler. I was involved with Athletes in Action, and he met with me on a regular basis before I got married and kept me on the straight and narrow when I could hardly handle the excitement of marriage. Jake was key in my life for a good 2 or 3 years. And then also in Orange County, my good friend Alex, who I surfed with all the time. And we would get out in the water and just talk about life and our families and our marriage and just deprogram from the busyness of life. And then as we moved back to San Diego, our hometown, about 4 months ago, and we're doing great there. But you know who I reconnected with as soon as I got back to San Diego? JK and my friend Jeff Martin. JK I've known for 30 years. Jeff Martin was an elder in my church years ago. Man, I seek these guys out my whole life because they have been critical. I meet with them on a regular basis. I was supposed to report to you this morning that I had met with Jeff Martin right before this Sunday because I texted Jeff and I said, I'm preaching on friendship. We got to reconnect. I've been back in San Diego for 4 months. Well, he's busy and I'm busy. But I said to him, I got to follow through on my word. If I'm going to preach about friendship, I got to do that, right? So Jeff and I have known each other for years. And I just gave you a list of names of these men that have been so important to me throughout my life. Whether we meet in person, face-to-face, or call, or text, or email, whatever we do, I purposely stay connected to these guys. They've known me for many years, and we can express our emotions to each other about the good and the bad of life and things that make sense and certainly things that don't make sense also. I believe our best friends need to be people we can pour our heart out to and we can pour our soul out to. Many of you have those friendships already, and I want to congratulate you. But for you, those of you that don't, I hope you're going to be encouraged this morning to see the value in that and the example that Jonathan and David set for us in the Bible. I believe it's critical to our health and well-being as we go through life. Because our friends' influence is much greater than we realize at every phase of our life. So I spoke at a youth camp this summer to a whole bunch of high school kids. We talked about peer pressure. And I said to them, guess what? Peer pressure never goes away. Even as adults, we need to make sure that we make wise choices with our friends, right? We were swimming at a pool near our house this summer, and it was late at night. I think the pool closed at 10, and I had my young children with me, and there was a whole group of teenagers there, just being goofy teenagers, not knowing that anybody else was at the pool. It was kind of dark at night, and they were just obnoxious and rude and saying the dumbest, foulest things because they were just being silly and dumb teenagers. But I looked at them and I thought, boy, what a great and sad example that night of peer pressure. They were all friends, but they were exaggerating their bad behavior because they were all together thinking they were the only ones at the pool. I saw how peer pressure influences teenagers as well as us as adults. So I want to encourage you to choose wisely and show you a couple of silly pictures about what it means to choose wisely. See if you can recognize these pictures. This is from a great, weird movie, 3 of them that came out. Do you guys remember what this movie was? The Matrix. That's exactly right. And in this part of the movie, Neo had to choose wisely. There was a red pill and a blue pill. One took him one way and one took him another way. And it's such a bizarre movie with all kinds of weird themes in it. But I liked it because there was a critical moment in that movie where he said to him, you need to choose wisely. It's going to take you down one path or another path. And the same thing with our friendships. At every phase of our life, we need to choose wisely. Another picture is the classic example we see in movies of that stressful moment when the guy's trying to disarm the bomb, right? Is it the red wire or the blue wire? And they can never figure it out. If they clip the right one, everyone's saved. If they clip the bad one, that's it. You know, everyone gets blown up. It's kind of silly, but it's true also because I think if we make a right choice, it takes us right down the right path. And if we make the bad choice, it can be explosive, it can be wrong, it can ruin things, and it happens over time. And then another one, of course, is from the great movie Indiana Jones and that whole choices he had to make. I mean, I could give you 100 examples of what it means to choose wisely. But the reason we do that is because of this next verse, and that is from the Bible, Proverbs 27:17. As iron sharpens iron, so one man or one person sharpens one another. We need those friendships. We need to choose wisely so we can sharpen each other, we can hold each other accountable, and we can grow in our faith. So that verse applies to every single one of us in this room, no matter your age. Those friendships develop when you're young, and they get more important as you get older. But look at it as an opportunity to sharpen each other and keep each other sharp in the ways of the Lord as we grow in our faith and make wise choices. But the key is you got to choose. Especially for us guys, we need to seek out quality friendship. I know us guys, I like to call it, if we're not careful, we're guilty of the dude bro. You know, what's up, bro? Hey, dude, how you doing? Doing great. You get home, your wife says, did you talk to your friend? Oh, yeah, we had a great conversation. That's what we do, right, guys? What's up, bro? Hey, dude, what's up? Oh, so good to connect with my friend. That's us guys, right? We need to move past that. But that takes time. And again, I know some of you guys are probably uncomfortable thinking about just how Jonathan and David related or expressing your emotions to other men. But I'm telling you, it's been vital in my life as I've continued to just grow as a man and work my way through life. So guys, I'm telling you this morning, if you don't have these kind of friendships in your life, you've got to seek them out. I had more than once in my life have said to a friend of mine, some of those names I mentioned as I've reconnected, hey, I'm back in town or I'm living here now. Do you want to meet on a regular basis? And if I initiate it, they almost always say yes, and then we get going. So guys, you got to seek that out. If you don't have it now, we need it as much as the women need it. And I think in general, women are much better expressing their emotions. I used to say this in marriage counseling all the time. When we get together as a couple, you know, the woman says to the man, how was your day? And he does the dude bro thing, you know, good, fine, work was good. And then he says to the wife, how was your day? And then she starts talking, and she's telling him the plane takes off. And she's telling one story after the other. They're not even connected. And he's saying, when is that plane going to land? She doesn't want to land the plane. She just keeps going. Now, I know that may be an overgeneralization, but it's true, right? Women are so, am I right? Thank you. One fine young man here agrees with me. But see, girls can do that so well. And guys, we need to learn to do that on a guy level. It's important for us. Kelly and I had a great date last night as we connected on a lot of important things. But she was flying that plane over my head during our dinner date. I'm telling you right now. And a lot of it, I'm like, okay, that I think I can handle. And a lot of it was, oh, man, I'm not even sure where to go with that. And we've been married 30 years in January. I still can't figure her out because she's a woman. And that's okay because there's times when I need my friends to connect with me. And that leads into the bonus. The bonus section today for you married folks. Let's take just a minute and talk about this. I want to show you a diagram I've used in marriage counseling, and I think this is important. So, first of all, you may or may not know this, but I believe we are not designed to meet all of the needs of your spouse in marriage. You are not designed to meet all of the needs of your spouse in marriage. And the key word there being all. We can meet some of the needs. Now, the way this diagram works, I've used it for years, is the circle on the left would represent the male. So that's where the M comes in. So that's the man. And then the circle on the right represents the woman. W. So in marriage, a man and a woman come together. They don't lose each other. They don't lose themselves in each other. They stay in what I like to call equal thirds. And the middle represents that equal third. So I believe, of all the weddings I've done over years and my own experience in marriage, that in marriage, this is how friendship works. You've got the man on the left and the woman on the right, and that man has good, important male friendships in his life. And the woman has good, important woman friendships in her life. And they're also equally good friends in the middle as a married couple. But when I can't understand my wife's emotions because she's a woman and that's the way God made her and that's a beautiful thing, or she can't understand my lack of communication, she gets with her women godly friends and says, your husband does that too? So does mine. But we love those guys, as dumb as they are, because they can't voice their opinion. And I get together with the guys like, yeah, man, women, they're the best. I can't figure them out. I mean, you know, I come back stronger as a man. She comes back stronger as a woman because we keep those friendships in our marriage outside of just our friendship together. As a married couple, if you're trying to meet all of each other's needs in that middle section, you're going to fail. And that's okay because God made us wonderfully and beautifully different. And there are strengths in women and strengths in men that can be meet in those same-sex relationships. And to finish this illustration, here's the key though. And I'm going to make a reference to none other than Mike Pence, whom you may not agree with on some things, but I think he was right when he said, I only go to dinner with my wife. I agree with him on that. I don't have women that are my best friends. I will never have women as best friends. I know lots of women. And I don't go to dinner with women unless my wife knows about it way ahead of time and it's for church or business or something. But I get that. So those friendships, my best friends need to be guys, and my wife's best friends need to be girls, Christian women and Christian men, to make us stronger as a married couple. So that's my 2 cents. Free marriage counseling this morning, whether you wanted it or not. All right, let's get practical and wrap it up. Because we all need good friends, I believe, at every phase of our life. Let me give you some practical tips to pull it together. If you're a Christian and you're fully committed to God for his plan for your life, and that's what we preach at church, is following a relationship with God and making sure we follow his plans for our life. That's my path I'm taking us down this morning. Here's some tips for you. Number 1, your best or closest friends should be Christians who desire God as deep as you do. If you're a fully committed Christian, then your Christian friends need to be the same way. 1 Samuel chapter 23, in our story this morning, it speaks of how they wanted to grow close in their relationship to each other as well as to God. 1 Samuel 23:16, and Saul's son Jonathan went to David at Horesh and helped him find strength in God. So the two of those young men grew together as friends, and they grew together in their relationship to God. And I think that's the key. I did a version of this message at the youth camp this summer, geared much more towards youth, and I had some of the youth say to me afterwards, well, do all of our friends have to be Christians? And I said, no, but your closest friends need to be Christians, I believe, because they're going to help you walk in your relationship with God and have that deep desire for God as you do. Second point under being practical is that your best friends are a vital link to your health, well-being, and spiritual growth. And that, I'm telling you, as the gospel truth, because I've experienced it. I'm 56 years old. I know a few more things now than I did a few years ago, right? And this has been my experience. It is literally a vital link to my health and my well-being, and especially my spiritual growth. I need men in my life who ask me the tough questions and hold me accountable and go through a list of questions and in the end say, did you just lie to me? We'll do that as men sometimes. We go through a list of accountability questions and then we make sure we're not lying to each other. It's vital to my spiritual growth to have those men in my life. For all of us, it's the same thing. Number 3, I've kind of addressed this already. Have a wide range of friends, some non-Christians. But here's the key. Know your limitations when you're around your non-Christian friends. God does allow us to be the Christ in their lives. As we are used by God, we need to have non-Christian friends, absolutely. But know your limitations so you don't get pulled down inadvertently in that friendship. And then see how God uses you as a tool in his hands to bring people to Christ. So hear from me. All friends are important. Absolutely, we need a good list of non-Christian friends. You should be able to list 4 or 5 non-Christian friends that you're in regular contact with. But the key ones, the ones that help you grow in your faith, need to be those solid Christians. Next point is that your best friends need to be someone that you could discuss scriptures with and wrestle with theological concepts. Some of the men that I've mentioned to you this morning some of them are pastors and some of them are just theologians that have studied for years. And I'm telling you, to this day, we send emails back and forth and we wrestle with theology. And I love it. We never stop learning. And we hold each other accountable and we challenge each other on the scriptures and the truths. What a privilege to have that in our friendships. To grow spiritually, we wrestle with theology. And then also, best friends are people who stick with you through thick and thin, better or worse, up and down, highs and lows. I mentioned that earlier. That's a practical and a good friendship. And then finally, that is that biblical friendships also mean saying no to some friendships. I think if you're wise and you want to let only the right people into your inner circle that help you grow in your faith, sometimes you have to just say no to people. In a very kind and loving way, you can't say yes to every friendship. Make the priority of the friendships the top of the list. And then finally, I know I'm going to get some of you mad at me, but dogs don't count. I know that's the easy way out, right? Okay, Evan, I heard your message this morning. My dog's my best friend. I've had some dogs that have got me through thick and thin. I get it. Dogs are halfway there. They're great listeners, right? They're the best. But they can't tell you what you're doing wrong. They just lick you and love you. They do a great job at that. So I hope you all enjoy your dogs. But I didn't get everybody mad at me, too mad at that one. Let me conclude with this. This is a silly illustration, but there's a picture I want to show you. I made a reference to a movie earlier. Anybody know what movie this is? Oh, good. I'm not the only old guy here that knows what this movie is. This is such a goofy, silly movie years ago when Steve Martin was early in his career. And in The Jerk, this guy's name was Nathan, I believe. And do you remember what happened in this scene? He got so frustrated with his friendships and his girlfriend that he says, that's it. I don't need anybody. I don't need anything. I'm leaving. And he leaves his friends and his girlfriends, and he walks out of the house. Well, I don't need anything except for this chair. And then he walks by, I don't need anything except for this paddle, and well, maybe this lamp. And he mopes down the street, right? And I bring that up because sometimes we get that way. Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I hear about Jonathan and David, but I'm just fine. I don't need anybody. We get our own little pity party driving the ambulance, right? And we're all just fine by ourselves. I've been that way sometimes in my life. And that's what I want to encourage you not to do. Oh, I'm just fine by myself. I don't need you guys. I'll just be fine. No, that's not the case. What did I say earlier? God created us for relationships. We need to be in vital Christian relationships with other humans and not feel like we can do it on our own. So I hope you're encouraged this morning. I hope you have those friends in your life right now. Even if it's just one, that's good enough. And if it's more, better. And if you don't have any on that level I've talked about this morning, that's your homework this week. Start that process. I believe it's critical for every one of us at every age of our life to have those biblical, godly friendships as we go through life. Let's pray together, and we'll ask God to sink these words into our heart.